Mr. Shakur is in prison in New York, and then Death Row Records posts an appellate bond for Mr. Shakur.
They have some other companies, but yes, sir.
Okay. And then Mr. Shakur does he move to where Death Row is, or does he stay in the New York area, or where does he go?
No, I remember, I picked him up from the airport, me and one of my security guys named Kevin Hackey.
Hackey, according to these court filings, worked for 2 years as an undercover agent for the FBI and ATF, helping the feds.
Let me speak a little bit about Reggie Wright Jr. Reggie's made it very clear in a lot of interviews that he went from never working for the FBI to working for Dan McMullen, for working for L.J. Conley, who was my partner, and that he was an FBI foreman. So I'm not saying anything right now regarding Reggie Wright Jr. that he hasn't already said a million times over on a documentary or on a podcast or any type of interview. Yes, Reggie was working with the FBI.
By the time he was 17 years old, he was active with the New African People's Organization, which was his mentor Watani Himba's group and Choka Lumumba's group. Choka Lumumba became his national lawyer, Watani became his business manager, and Tupac became head of the young adult section of that organization, the New African Panthers, who were about the same age as the Black Panthers when they first started, anywhere from 15 to 30 years old. And so they were trying to replicate the Black Panthers without the mistakes, Tupac said in interviews. So obviously these were all counterintelligence program targets in the New African People's Organization, because they were part of the Republic of New Africa, they were part of the Black Panthers, and they formed this new organization. So the FBI's counterintelligence program watched them very closely. They even visited Tupac when he was still in school, when Mutulu Shakur was a fugitive at one point, his stepfather. So they were already watching Tupac develop and evolve. When he became head of the New African Panthers, he became an obvious counterintelligence program target, or at least someone they would watch carefully.
And we took him immediately. We went to Monty's restaurant and ate. Then we went to the studio, the recording studio that night. And from that point on, we got him into a room, took him to the Peninsula Hotel, where he stayed for, I believe, a month or two. Then he got a spot on Wilshire, and later on a house in Calabasas.
As the head of Right Way Security, which was contracted by Death Row Records, were you responsible for Tupac Shakur's security?
Yes, sir.
I started working for Death Row back in 1994, and later became a bodyguard.
Michael Moore was my replacement for Pac that weekend at the MTV Awards in New York.
I was mostly a fill-in when I was guarding, with Tupac. Personally, I didn't like him.
How did you handle Tupac Shakur's security?
Well, I had two guys that were primarily always assigned to him. One guy was a guy by the name of Kevin Hackey, who was with him a lot at the beginning.
Hackey, a former Compton School District police officer who worked off-duty hours as a Tupac bodyguard, now reveals to Fox 11 News an interesting series of events. He says, here at the House of Blues in 1996, an off-duty Santa Monica cop working security confiscated a .40 caliber Glock handgun similar to this from a member of Tupac Shakur's entourage.
About 2 weeks after that, I was contacted by Reggie to go over to Santa Monica Police Department to pick up this firearm.
Hackey says he first showed the handgun to his FBI handlers and then turned it over to Reggie Wright Jr. A month later in Las Vegas, investigators say it was a .40 Glock handgun that killed Tupac Shakur. Hackey believes the murder weapon was the same gun he gave Reggie Wright Jr.
I believe it is.
And here's why. Hackey says he asked Wright about the .40 Glock.
He stated once I gave him that firearm, he gave it back to his daddy, who at the time was a lieutenant with Compton Police over the gang division. He stated his daddy booked that firearm in the property, which, is really and truly far-fetched.
And Hackey says 6 months after Tupac's murder, he had another conversation with Reggie Jr. about the missing handgun. It didn't go well.
Reggie told me, hey, it ain't giving time. I have the money, I have the people, I can have you killed, it ain't giving time.
Later on, towards the end, a gentleman by the name of Frank Alexander was the one that worked with him as well.
Former Tupac bodyguard Frank Alexander, in this new documentary released in October, recounts 24 bodyguards that night were told not to carry weapons. He now believes this fight involving Tupac and a rival Crip gang member at the MGM Hotel was staged so the rival could later be blamed for Tupac's murder. A setup, he charges, orchestrated by Death Row Records CEO Marion Suge Knight and Reggie Wright Jr., the record company's security chief.
Knight entrusted the protection of the artist to former and current police officers and fire department officials. Of course, not all of the police hired by Reggie Wright were model citizens. The arrests of David Mack and Rafael Perez showed a new level of corruption in the LA Police Department, and both were on Death Row's payroll.
You just say that the police were involved?
1,000%. Quickie cops, off-duty cops. I ain't never knew Ramp Park police. I ain't never knew none of those dudes. They all knew those dudes. I ain't never met with none of those dudes, been cool with them, nothing like that.
David Mack was arrested. He refused to cooperate with the police.
We didn't know until later that he'd made a trip to Las Vegas 2 days after the bank robbery.
How'd you find out about that?
We were talking to his wife, who had mentioned that he had said he had gone to Las Vegas. She said he had won a substantial amount of money in Las Vegas at that time. And we were able to determine that 2 of the people he had gone to Las Vegas with were also Los Angeles police officers.
The other 2 checked out clean. David Mack was convicted and in jail underwent a particular kind of transformation.
He's in custody, Los Angeles County Jail, and we're getting reports back that he is attiring himself with red socks, red items that distinguish association with the Blood Gang. And we'd also received word from jailers that he had said he is a Blood gang member.
Now a disturbing pattern had begun to present itself. Officer Kevin Gaines, tied to Death Row. Off-duty cops involved in the gangster rap scene. David Mack, renouncing the LAPD and coming out as a Blood gang member.
Through interviews of former police officers that worked in the Death Row organization, Mack and Gaines were identified as confidants of Suge Knight.
I did have Nextel phones. We had about 8 to 10 of them. They did dual jobs. My guys knew it better be emergency to pick up that cell phone. But the two-way walkie-talkies on the Nextels, you could use them to call. That's how we communicated. On that picture with Buntry, you'll see one hanging out of his pocket. That's what the type of Nextel phones we had.
And so going back again to what Frank has, Frank does have one of those radios.
He had one, but later learned, after we do Monday back quarterbacking and stuff, that it was dead.
Reggie asked me to ride with him to the meeting. I was actually going to ride with Michael Moore. He began to tell me about how he was upset at Kevin Hackey, and that Kevin Hackey had my Nextel two-way cell phone radio that should have been given to me when I arrived in Vegas.
So he is there, he doesn't call when you leave the flight. Now, does he call you after the situation happens with Fernando Anderson?
No, sir.
They all rush out, right? They all go back to, I think, to Luxor.
That's correct.
But you don't know that because no one calls you.
I haven't heard anything. Didn't know it was an issue.
So you're still sitting over at 662. You're worried about making sure the club passes inspections, and you're there and you're waiting. In the meantime, people get picked up at the Luxor, and then they're transported all the way to Suge Knight's house.
I mean,
once again, if you don't know, you can just tell me.
Yeah. I just assume
You're not just.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay. Now, at some point, they're traveling down Flamingo, and the shots occur at that particular point, right? But you don't know.
Correct.
And so you're sitting at the club, and you don't know.
I wasn't sitting, but yeah.
Oh, well, whatever. I mean, I'm sure you're working, right? So you're working, and your concern is making sure the club passes, and that the club passes for Suge Knight. Even though his attorney's present, all these cops are on the outside, and you have the security proficiency of Mob James on the inside, right?
And about 25 to 30 of my guys.
And so, once again, yes, 20 to 30 of your guys.
Correct, yeah.
Retired police officers or off-duty police officers.
Correct.
And they're all there.
Correct.
We had a dinner meeting, make that a lunch meeting, and thank God it's Fridays, I believe, in Las Vegas, prior to the fight starting, and I was told that I'd be taken off Tupac Shakur.
And at some point, you get notice that Tupac had been shot, right?
I got notified, correct.
Was it through the Nextel walkie-talkie stuff?
No, sir.
How did that happen?
Mr. Williams and Mr. McDonald ran up to me and told me.
Michael Moore, the night that Tupac was shot, after being taken off of Tupac with me, went back over to Club 662.
Maybe the police should have concentrated more on death row, the Nextel phone bills, and other things that could have helped them investigate it more in depth. I would definitely look more at death row than I would look at Mr. Anderson, and that's from what I've gathered when I was at New York, what I heard Pac tell Suge Knight, and what I heard over that radio that night after the shots were fired.
They got word that Tupac and Suge had been shot. So Michael was with Reggie and they went to the hospital together. And Michael talks about hearing something over the radio. Well, he would have heard it over Reggie's radio because he wouldn't have had a radio that night.
Right before me and Mr. Wright got in the vehicle to go get to the hospital, someone else came on the radio and said, "Hey, don't say nothing over the radio."
On the radio, they said they think he's a white guy, a lawyer, and they said, "Hey, don't talk on the walkie-talkies on the radio. Don't talk on the air."
And I just clearly heard somebody say, "Don't say that over the radio." The person that said that was Caucasian, definitely not African American.
I know that attorney David Kenner always says, "Don't talk on your cell phone. Somebody listening. They recorded and you can't do that. They're listening to you." I told David, I said, "Hey, was that you on the walkie-talkie?" David Kenner goes and says, "Sure, I never had a walkie-talkie." Wow, he's so bent out of shape, but I was joking about it, right? I said, "You never had a walkie-talkie?" He said, "That's not me talking on the walkie-talkie." I never said he was talking on the walkie-talkie. So Kenner had sent some of my boxes and files to another attorney. He wanted the boxes back. That didn't make sense. So when we discovered a walkie-talkie in the boxes, I said, "Send me a picture of it." So on my tablet, they can send photos, so they sent me a photo of the walkie-talkie. It blew me away. One part of me, it made my blood boil. Another part of me, I just seen Tupac's face flash all in my mind. I see these motherfuckers involved with the assassination.
Defense attorney David Kenner through Harrio's parent company Godfather Entertainment. Chris Blatchford for Fox 11 News, after Tupac's death, reported that a confidential informant had told him, in the summer of 1996, allegedly David Kenner and Reggie Wright Jr. attended a gang summit in Balboa Park, Los Angeles, where Reggie Wright Jr. attempted to find people to be involved in murdering Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight. The alleged motive was to reap the rewards of a company takeover with no audit, with the additional catalogue of unreleased songs by Tupac, which would increase tenfold in sales after his passing. A supposed plan then allegedly went into action.
And at some point, you become the general manager of Death Row Records.
That's in 1997, sir.
1997.
Yes, that's correct, sir.
So Suge Knight is in Las Vegas, and you were with them every single day. And in September of 1996, he just happened to get in this fray, and next thing you know, he's going to prison, right?
I'm sorry?
Let me ask you this. Why did Suge go to prison?
He violated his probation.
Right. So you knew, of course, that he was on probation, right? Before
The whole time I was with him.
You did?
From 1994, yes.
Yeah. And so you knew that the number one person from Death Row Records, the primary principal for you, potentially could go to prison if he got into a fight, for instance, right?
Correct.
And on this particular night, you weren't around for him when he was in this quote-unquote fight, right?
I was around with Mr. Knight about 70 to 80% of his life. So I guess a lot of 20%, I wasn't with him.
Okay.
Public, and when I say that, I mean public. Because a lot of times he laid up, sleep with somebody, and I wasn't with him.
So in the most important time of Suge Knight's life, of having your protection, you weren't there for him.
Unfortunately not, that's correct.
And then you became the general manager of Death Row Records.
By his calling, not anyone else.
All right. No further questions.
Mack and Gaines were identified as confidants of Suge Knight, the owner of Death Row Records. They were present during private death row parties, and that's where first time that we were able to really make the connection between those two.
And when detectives had searched Mack's home, in the garage, they'd found a black Chevy Impala SS and something else.
He also had a shrine of Tupac Shakur, posters and memorabilia of Tupac Shakur all through the garage.
A dark Chevy and Tupac Shakur were, it turns out, part of another mystery.
It could not have happened in the way that it did without them having knowledge of it.
But Suge says, why would he order Tupac shot knowing he'd be sitting right next to him in the BMW? He says he had nothing to do with Tupac's murder.
God knows the truth. And when it comes down to it, it's not one person in the world with any sense of know I have anything to do with getting Tupac shot.
Every time I came out, there was two Suge Knight guys sitting at the door. They'd always bum rush him and say, did Tupac say anything? Unbeknownst to me, I'm not paying attention to that. I don't know what behind that. Later on, I found out why. Maybe he thought he'd seen the people who had tried to kill him.
Enforcement investigations, you find that the first suspects that are looked at are generally wives, girlfriends, significant others, people that would normally have a natural relationship. And you'd actually try to figure out if they were the most logical suspect. And in this case, it doesn't seem to happen, yet you're looking at she had plenty of motive.
She was managing from the very beginning, but wasn't happy with that.
Nightlife management, which Sharitha Knight owned, which was Suge Knight's wife. By Suge owning Death Row Records, it would be a conflict of interest of him managing his artists too. So he had that in his wife's name. And not only did she manage every artist that was on Death Row, she also managed Caution. She managed us.
Like I said, I had two of the toughest guys for him, and Reggie pulled them off of me. And after it happened, I told him to send 5 guys from the club to there, and they never said nobody.
Yeah.
And Frank blocked us in purposely. Later, he told us at the streets. They told him to do it, you know?
Yeah.
Hey, Frank got so bad he died, you know?
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And Michael Moore.
Yeah. And then Perez and them was all involved. They were trying to kill me too, but see, because Perez and Reg was good friends, and Perez and Sharitha and Reg is great friends, and so all those three together was trying to plot.
Facts begin to emerge about Kevin Gaines, that black officer who Liga took to be a menacing gangster.
After the shooting, there was 4 or 5 other witnesses that had called LAPD to report that this same officer, Gaines, had either badged or brandished his gun in similar road rage type incidents.
The investigation took detectives into Gaines' off-duty life.
While we were at the scene, we received a clue that Gaines had a girlfriend that lived in Hollywood Hills. And when we got there, it turned out that his girlfriend was Sharitha Knight, who was the estranged wife of the owner of Death Row Records.
They said the police had to be first to kill me. 2-3 weeks after that,
Then when he landed his first solo CD, and added wealth and fame to that, new African Panther leadership, he became a more serious target, I argue, and within a few days of his first MTV worldwide release of a political song, Trapped, police stopped him supposedly for jaywalking. They proceeded to choke him unconscious and beat his head against the curb.
Cameraman, all of this is scars I'll go to my grave with.
I can see
These are
it.
learn to be a nigga scars. That's what
Who
these
did that
be.
to you?
Oakland Police Department, all above my eye, all of that.
Why?
And I pay their salaries because I was an outspoken young black man. They was sweating me for jaywalking.
You were jaywalking and they stopped you?
And I swear to you, I don't even know what jaywalking is.
And I showed that there was other incidents where people died in police, from those police tactics. After that, there was a drive-by on his limo when he was going to the film premiere of Juice, his first, movie. Then he was at the Marin Fest, and police watched as strangers punched him and then shot at him for no reason. And then they only arrested Tupac and not these strangers who did that, according to witnesses. And I show the witnesses. I show the some film sources of the exact words of the witnesses of what happened. After that, you got the Atlanta incident where Tupac's coming from a concert, and two allegedly off-duty cops, according to witnesses, both white and black, they said they ran this white group ran over Tupac's car, smashed the window of his car with the butt of their gun, and shot at him. And Tupac merely rolled out the back, grabbed a security guard's gun behind him, and shot back at him in self-defense.
Said I don't write songs about cop killing.
But it did have the lyrics in there.
Of the songs on your album mention cop killing? No.
Oh, that's not true.
No. All my
is
songs
not
talk about
true.
police brutality and self-defense. Now that's something different.
If we're going to talk about police, this man over here is in a really rough area, and he puts his life on the line every day.
I got so much respect for him for that, but look, we have to live in the same neighborhoods without bulletproof vests, without backup, without walkie-talkies, without guns, without tear gas, without pepper spray, without batons. So now we have to fix the problem.
Pac knew that media is a machine that you either work with it or against, so he worked with it.
These people don't see it every day.
No, but what I would like to see is for children in our country to have a better future than what you guys have. And that's not going to happen when he's repressing his generation and his people by saying they have no hope.
What do you know about my people?
I know a lot about your people.
If they really, truly want to solve the Pac murder, they would have done it years ago. Unfortunately, the government, I don't even think they really care about solving the death of Pac, the murder of Pac. So the government, from the time that I met Pac until the time that he died, he was always in odds with the law enforcement. He was always in odds. He shot 2 off-duty police. Police is like a gang in America. Police, we know that, police is like a gang. Not only that, in Los Angeles, they really doing some investigation where they find out that there's cliques within the LAPD. They really got gangs, it's crazy. So Pac shot 2 off-duty police. The police is like a gang, national, in the whole USA. So if you upset, you do something against they so-called brothers in blue, and whether it's in Atlanta, you on the radar of all the police across America. They didn't really like Pac because of that. So therefore, when Pac died, you think they really cared about solving his murder? It was to them, he was okay, we got rid of him. He shot 2 off-duty police. He always spoke about us in his records. They didn't really care about him.
Reggie provided a lot of information. He was in a very high-level position of Death Row Records. He was very aware of what we were doing in terms of investigations, numerous investigations on Death Row Records and Suge Knight. We executed search warrants. He helped provide information. Reggie had a game plan, and he made it very, very clear that he wanted to take over Death Row Records. Make no mistake about that.
More importantly, back to you, Reeves. It would take me to say, you running Death Row. You doing this for Death Row. If I don't say it, who could say it? Put yourself in more handcuffs. Show how much he was making. If you really was making this big company that I made and named so great, why no one never gave you a job? You put an album out to relatives. That group was signed to me. You said it was, when I went to prison, you put them out and end their career. It was over because you fucked it up. Reg, the main question is this.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
Your family close with Buntry. Why you didn't go to the funeral? Whack. You say you met Buntry, you know Buntry. Why you didn't go to the funeral? Buntry disposed you guys being a thief. Like he exposed you guys doing bullshit. The guy who was in the car with Buntry, Reg, left and went out of town. Y'all out there met up with him and gave him a lot of money. But when it came to us getting shot in Vegas, that was the crooked police along with some crooked-ass, rat-ass gang members.
It's beyond comprehension. And I know people say, oh, Phil Carson's crazy. This is the biggest conspiracy theory. There's no way you can get the somebody at the LA Times and somebody at LAPD and then somebody at the DA's office and the city attorney's office to all come together to help cover this up. No, it is true. And we know who those people are. We have audio recordings. We have the documentation. We have sworn statements for people that admitted they helped try to cover this thing up. And that's why I say the cover-up is worse than the crime, because of the people that were involved.
I think it's real crazy how Pac was fresh out of prison getting picked up by 2 Jews working for the feds. that mean they really had him under surveillance since day one on Death Row Records. Phil Carson saying Reggie had a motive to take over the record company makes me wonder if Suge was actually plotted on. And I didn't know Suge had hinted at Reggie having something to do with Bun Tree getting took out. That was a new one to me. But with Suge recently blaming the crooked cops and claiming they weren't connected to him, that's basically saying they were connected to Reggie. I will say, with Kevin Gaines messing around with Suge's wife or whatever, it makes me think maybe they wasn't cool like that. Homies don't mess with a dude's wife. That whole web of connections gets even deeper when you look at how tightly intertwined the streets, the label, and law enforcement really were back then. It makes you realize that what was happening on the surface with Death Row was just a smokescreen for a much bigger power struggle. When you drop names like Kevin Gaines given his background with the Rampart scandal and his association with certain circles, it blurs the lines completely between who was supposed to be upholding the law and who was moving like an active participant in the corporate takeover. If Suge Knight is finally pointing fingers at the crooked cops while trying to distance himself from them, it feels less like a defense and more like an attempt to rewrite a history he knows he lost control of. At the end of the day, everybody from that era is trying to revise their legacy, but the paper trail and the federal oversight from day one tell a story of an operation that was compromised long before it ever self-destructed. Do you think the government actually had something to do with Tupac's assassination? It definitely seems like they had informants all around him. And were those crooked cops ultimately rolling with Reggie Wright or Suge Knight? Drop your thoughts in the comments below.